Okay, Penn State. They have Penn State as the number 4 in the top 5. They're the number 4 as far as power rankings, which I always find fascinating. And I think this goes to the same thing that we said about Michigan prior to 2021, which is every year Harbaugh was there, Michigan was ranked in the top 5 and then just bottomed out. And I was getting so sick and tired of the hype. I think it was actually in the summer before the 21 season started. That's when I was saying, I'm going to watch the games, but I'm not real excited about it because Harbaugh just hypes everything and then nothing happens. And then, of course, 21 happened and I've been hooked ever since. But I feel like the same thing is happening at Penn State. Every year, James Franklin says, we've got it. And the power rankings come out and they put them up high and they haven't done anything.
Penn State's got the talent. They've got most of the coaches. The issue is that James Franklin calls some really questionable calls sometimes. He went for a 4th down against Michigan because the analytics say to go for it if you're this far from the first down line or, whatever, go for 2 at this particular time because the analytics say to go for it. The analytics don't know what's going on at that point in the game. The analytics can't measure momentum. Emotionally speaking, if your team's just not there, don't go for it.
In the chat, let us know who you think the starter and the backup are going to be for Penn State, and then Mac is going to tell you what his thoughts are.
Yeah, I mean, Drew Allar is going to be the starter for sure. I think that he'll have a good year. He completed 60% of his passes for 2,600 yards last year. That's a good year. I mean, that's a very good year. 2 interceptions, 25 touchdowns. That's a very good year. And I love that Penn State fans were so upset with Drew Allar for losing to Ohio State and Michigan, as if it wasn't James Franklin's play calling that did it for them. In any case, the kid can run a little bit too. Like, he's actually not a bad runner, so he's a dual threat for the most part ish. But I honestly have no clue who their backup's going to be. I did not watch that much Penn State football last season. Why? Because Michigan was playing very well, so I didn't feel like I needed to drown my sorrows by living vicariously through another team. So I have no idea who their backup's going to be. My money is probably on, I think his name is pronounced Bo Pribula. It looks like out of the backups, he's got the most experience.
Now, is he a red shirt this year, or was he a red shirt when he's been a red shirt, and now he's a sophomore?
Yeah, so I think he's academically a junior, but football-y a sophomore. Football-y.
So you think Drew Allar is the starter and Bo Pribula is likely the backup?
I think he's probably the backup.
We've got Connor Stallions here says, well, for PSU, they just have to run an offense that makes sense and not a schmo like me can predict. When those of us not at the game can see easily what's happening. Antoine agrees with you. James Franklin knows how to lose a game. Penn State quarterbacks rarely take the next step outside of Trace McSorley.
Especially under James Franklin, too. I feel like you know what you're going to get with a Penn State quarterback, and they never really get that much better from year to year. Now, if Drew Allar has the same season this year as he did last year, then fine. But let's get some of the play call, or let's mix up some of the play calling. Let's maybe get a little bit more of the run game going, because the defense was solid. It's just Penn State's offense couldn't really move the ball against the better teams. I hesitate to say that Penn State really needs to get better on offense, because they honestly weren't that bad. But it was when they went up against Ohio State and Michigan, obviously, they couldn't really do anything. They did every once in a while, but they need to get more consistent. To me, it's putting your quarterback in the type of situation where he can be successful that James Franklin seems to miss every single time. Every single time he goes up against an Ohio State and a Michigan, with a few exceptions, he doesn't put his players in a good position. It's like he's not planning. He doesn't have any forethought to the play calling. He just kind of calls plays as they happen. Like, oh, it's 3rd and 4. Let's call a passing play. Are you on the opposing team's 15-yard line? Maybe you actually want to run, because at that point it's 4th down and you're already deep in their territory. You don't really need to punt. Maybe you could try and go for it on 4th down and get the 1st down, and then boom, you're only 15 yards away from a touchdown. So he doesn't really think these things through, in my opinion. I feel like he's a very reactive coach and not a very proactive coach. That to me is the difference between a good and a great Penn State, is if he can plan better. Drew Allar is a good quarterback. He needs to be put in the right position.
Antoine says also James Franklin, the Oregon coach, constantly go for it when they don't need to.
Yes, that is correct.
The analytics say go, but that doesn't mean you're supposed to.
Doesn't mean you should.
Doesn't mean you should.
Sam Hartman's looking downfield for Adrian.
Carter almost has a one-handed catch.
Almost. That would have